I call the 2,363rd meeting of the Milwaukie City Council to order. This meeting is being conducted in person at City Hall and by video conference. The public may participate in this meeting by coming to City Hall, joining the Zoom webinar, or watching on the city's YouTube channel or Comcast cable channel 30 in city limits. There will be opportunities for the public to speak during this meeting. If you would like to address council, you may come to City Hall. However, seating in council chambers is limited. If you're interested in speaking, please let staff know by emailing ocr@milwaukieoregon.gov for those on Zoom, or by submitting a yellow comment card for those at City Hall. When it's time to take public comment, staff will monitor the comment cards, the email inbox, the Zoom participant list, and chat. We will take comments in the order that they are received and seen. Written comments may be emailed to ocr@milwaukieoregon.gov. The public may also participate in the Zoom webinar by phone by dialing 1-253-215-8782, entering webinar ID 841-6722-7661, and passcode 097479. If you are calling in through Zoom and would like to make a comment, dial *9 to raise your hand. Spanish translation services are available upon request. The public is asked to request translation and other meeting accessibility services at least 48 hours before the meeting. Contamos con servicio de traducción al español cuando sea solicitado. Se pide al público que solicite servicios de traducción y otros servicios de accesibilidad para reuniones por lo menos 48 horas antes de la reunión. Translation services are also available in other languages. All right, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
The city of Milwaukie respectfully acknowledges that our community is located on the ancestral homeland of the Clackamas people. In 1855, the surviving members of the Clackamas signed the Willamette Valley Treaty, also known as the Kalapuya Etc. Treaty, with the federal government in good faith. We offer our respect and gratitude to the indigenous people of this land. Just to make it clear, there are typically 5 members of council. There are 5 members of council. Typically, all are here tonight. 2 of them are unavailable to come in, and we're on Zoom for a while. 1 is currently on Zoom. We'll see if the other one comes back. All right, tonight's announcements. Concerts in the Park continue through the month of August, brought to you by the Llewellyn NDA and the Ardenwald-Johnson Creek NDA. Stop by Ball Michelle Park on Wednesdays at 6:30 p.m. and Ardenwald Park on Thursdays at 7 p.m. Community engagement for the development of Scott Park next to the Ledding Library continues. Review 2 draft concept plans and take a short survey to provide feedback until August 19th on Engage Milwaukie. Volunteer on Saturday, August 20th to jump into Johnson Creek and remove trash where it matters most. Various locations along the creek are available. This annual event began in 2007 and so far has removed 65 tons of trash from the creek. Learn more and register to volunteer on Johnson Creek Watershed Council's website at NCWC.org. Help raise funds for Milwaukee Police Department's K9 program by participating in the annual 9K for K9 walk on Saturday, August 27th. Walks begin at 9, 10, and 11 a.m. This year's event takes place in the downtown, beginning in the parking lot across Main Street from City Hall. For more information and to register, visit the Milwaukee Public Safety Foundation's website at PSF.org. City Manager Ann Ober is hosting another open door session on Tuesday, August 30th from 4 to 5 p.m. No sign up is necessary and sessions are first come, first serve. Sessions take place at City Hall here in the council chambers. For more information about each of these events and others, please visit the city's homepage at milwaukieoregon.gov or call 503-786-7555. All right, any others, Lisa?
I don't know of anything else this week, unusually.
All right. No proclamations and awards, strangely, this week. And so our next item is the Youth Advocacy and Empowerment Summer Camp, a report. This will be presented by a variety of people, it looks like. Welcome.
Thank you. It's good to be here. Thank you for your time.
Beth.
Thank you.
All right. Would love to hear what you have to tell us about.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor Gamba and council members. Thank you for allowing us time on the agenda today. My name is Isna Vakas. I use she, her pronouns, and I work for the Vibrant Future Coalition and Northwest Family Services. I am here with my colleagues at Clackamas County Public Health Department and our youth to talk about the impacts of flavored tobacco among youth. Okay. This summer, Northwest Family Services, Vibrant Future Coalition, and Clackamas County Public Health have been hosting the Photo Voice Advocacy Empowerment Camp, which provides youth a space to critically think about product placement of tobacco products in our convenience stores and its effect on youth consumption in Clackamas County. Next, Jamie Zettner from Clackamas County Public Health will provide some context on flavored tobacco use in our community.
Thank you, Isna. Good evening, Mayor Gamba and councilors. I echo Isna's appreciation for your time this evening. My name is Jamie Zettner. I'm a senior program planner at Clackamas County Public Health. I've been with the Tobacco Prevention Education Program since 2008. Our goals in tobacco prevention education is pretty simple. We want to reduce exposure to secondhand smoke. We want to help people quit, and we want to prevent youth from starting tobacco and vaping products. And we do that through policy, systems, and environmental changes that support our health in partnership with organizations like Northwest Family Services and as well as regional and statewide partners. Before ISNA and youth continue, I just would like to start with some regional and state updates and context. Last year, the Oregon State Legislature passed a tobacco retail licensing. That means any business that wishes to sell tobacco and vaping products needs to purchase a license. It is really foundational to any other type of tobacco regulation. So we're happy that Oregon finally has that in place. And just in May, the Washington County residents, 76% of them, voted to ban the sales of flavored tobacco products. That is the first in the state and actually the first in the Pacific Northwest. So it's pretty impressive change. And just this morning, the health officer in Multnomah County made a presentation similar to this one to the Multnomah County Board of Health on the flavored tobacco products. It was a conversation they started before the pandemic, and the commissioners there are wishing to continue that. Also this morning, Clackamas County Public Health released a health advisory titled Protecting Teens from E-Cigarettes and Flavored Nicotine. That just came out this morning, so I brought copies to leave with you today. And that actually builds on a report. It's youth vaping and flavored products. So I'll leave both for you here. And finally, I'd like to share a map of the North Clackamas School District. Our epidemiologist has mapped schools in the North Clackamas School District and overlaid that with grocery stores, convenience stores, and smoke shops. So the blue circles are the schools. The red are the smoke shops. The purple are the convenience stores that sell the most tobacco products. And then the green are the grocery stores. So down near the south, where you see the 3 circles, those are the smoke shops. And the one, if I had a pointer, I would point to the Rex Putnam High School.
Oh, there you go.
That's, oh, you can point to it. So it's that one right there. That's Rex Putnam High School. And up here is downtown Milwaukie. So we have the cluster of Milwaukie and the other 2 schools, and you can see the vicinity to convenience stores. This link, if you're interested, takes you to an interactive map, and you can actually zoom in and hover over the schools so you can see where the schools are in vicinity to tobacco retailers. So I'll pass it back to Isna.
Thank you. Before we get started to talk about flavored tobacco, I think it's necessary to make a distinction between commercial tobacco and traditional tobacco. So traditional tobacco is used primarily by indigenous tribes and nations as medicine for spiritual and ceremonial importance. Commercial tobacco, on the other hand, is manufactured and marketed by tobacco companies and includes smoking products like cigarettes and non-smoking products like chewed tobacco, e-cigarettes, vape pens, and puff bars. Compared to traditional tobacco, commercial tobacco is sold for profit and includes harmful chemicals that can cause disease and death. So why are flavored products a problem? According to CDC, in 2021, 85% of the youth e-cigarette users reported using flavored tobacco products, with fruit, candy, and other sweeteners like mint and menthol were considered the most popular ones. And there's a graphic for one of the youth took photo of it in a convenience store near Northwest Army Services, and includes like, there was like banana, watermelon, grape. I think there's also strawberry right behind, or bubble gum right behind the little image over there. If we look at the health impacts, vaping is not harmless. E-cigarettes share many of the same dangers as traditional cigarettes do, since they contain numerous amount of toxins, and additionally, e-cigarettes also contain a high level of nicotine. Nicotine is highly addictive and can cause serious harm in youth's developing brains, impacting learning, memory, and attention parts of their brain. These harmful effects of e-cigarettes stress the importance of preventing youth from starting cigarettes itself. So this slide itself shows an example of what flavored tobacco in the market look like. So as you can see, there's like different flavors that primarily are targeted towards youth. A lot of the fruit-focused flavors like pineapple, there's bubblegum. I see some like Sour Patch candy-looking packaging on the corner, on the very edge of it. And then, so a lot of these flavors are targeted towards youth in the community. We also covered the environmental impact of the flavored tobacco products, and it was provided through the one-pager that was provided prior a week before the presentation. There's a flavored tobacco epidemic going on in Portland metro area, and the problem is even more pronounced in Clackamas County. In 2019, 27.2% of the 11th graders in Clackamas County reported using tobacco products, and 26.1% of this youth also reported using e-cigarettes, which is the highest in the region. The tobacco industry knows that their goal is to hook the youth on different flavors. The use of flavored tobacco products from such a young age can lead to lifelong addiction. For example, in Milwaukie, the highest rate of adult smokers is in Milwaukie, in Clackamas County, at 19.3%, compared to the 17% that is nationwide. Next, you will hear from our summer camp youth, beginning with Brittany, who will reflect on our group's experience going into local convenience stores and observing flavored tobacco marketing and product placement.
Hello, okay. We observe that tobacco and nicotine products are very bright and colorful, have sweet flavors, and are placed near the cash registers right next to the candy. Also, there were small, difficult to read signs saying tobacco is dangerous, large signs advertising the products. I think the way the products are displayed is confusing and appealing to young kids. Yet, next, Danica will share her art piece from How Flavored Tobacco Affect My Community Art Contest.
After researching about the dangerous marketing strategies tobacco industries use to target youth, I created this illustration to spread awareness about the dangers of flavored tobacco products. In this piece, I wanted to show how the tobacco industries market flavored vape products as colorful, fun, and fruity flavors, which is represented in the top half of this piece. The bottom half represents the truth of flavored vapes, which is that it causes lung damage and death. The girl's body turns skeletal at her torso to show the flavored tobacco is chipping away at her life. Next, Sophia will share our final thoughts.
Wait, that was the third place?
Yeah.
That's incredible artwork.
Thank you.
You have a real talent.
Thank you so much. Today, we learned that flavored tobacco is a serious problem in Clackamas County, especially in Milwaukie, where we see higher rates of adult smoking than the county average. We also saw that many stores in our area sell tobacco and nicotine products near schools. Additionally, we shared our observations about how flavors and marketing are made to appeal to kids and confuse them into buying harmful products. In conclusion, we are concerned about how flavored products attract youth and contribute to lifelong addiction. Thank you for your time.
Thank you all.
Yeah.
So I'm sure I know I have questions. I'm sure others have questions. Do you have anything you want to start with?
What inspired you guys to take this on? Thank you for being here, first of all. I really appreciate you all being here, and it's courageous that you're here. I'm a former smoker, I'll admit that here, and I quit because of my son. So I appreciate what you guys are doing. So please, what inspired you all?
Yeah, exactly what you said. Smoking, tobacco, and vape can really affect someone's life, can affect relationships, and we just want to help out before people and more young kids start.
Thank you. Incredible.
So I assume it's still illegal for people under the age of 18 to purchase any of these products, correct?
Under the age of 21.
21. So it doesn't sound like this being very well enforced.
That's correct. Actually, even in Multnomah County, where they have their own tobacco retail licensing, still there are almost 1 in 5 youth who are able to purchase tobacco products. So can we repeat that just because she wasn't at the mic? That was 1 in 5 youth are still able to purchase tobacco products, even in Multnomah County where there's some enforcement. Right.
And that it's illegal for anyone under the age of 21 to purchase these products. Whose specific job theoretically is it to enforce those laws?
Well, in Multnomah County, it's the health department staff who take on that enforcement. Now, with the statewide tobacco retail licensing, it will be enforced primarily by the state, but there are health departments that are opting to enforce it in their own counties. So Clackamas County, we are deferring enforcement to the Oregon Health Authority. But other counties like Benton County, they will enforce their own.
Why is Clackamas County deferring? I think I know, but.
Well, actually, we don't have our own tobacco retail license. Okay, sure. Sorry, really? Sorry. Excuse me. Yeah, may I take your seat? Thank you. Thank you, Danica. The state has not quite established a reimbursement structure for local public health to do that enforcement, the education and enforcement work. Our public health director, Philip Mason Joyner, has actually been part of a work group with the Oregon Health Authority to figure out some form of reimbursement so we can at least keep our costs sustained. The hope is, though, that Clackamas County can be involved in that education and enforcement once that reimbursement gets figured out. Is that something you would hope Clackamas County Public Health does?
Yeah. So when you say they're sorting it out at the state level, are we talking about rulemaking and staff, or are we talking about there needing to be a decision by the lawmakers?
At this point, it's figuring out for each retailer how much to reimburse public health for that visit. And if there is additional enforcement, for example, if we find a violation, how much reimbursement does public health get for that visit? It's basically how much to pay public health to cover our costs.
But you don't know whether that's at this point a staff level decision or if that's a budgeting decision?
That looks like a budgeting decision.
Do you know what the ask is?
Can I ask,
Yes. Go ahead,
Mr.
Lisa.
Mayor, can I ask a couple questions?
Yes.
As I recall, the Washington County vote, they voted the county commission passed it, or and then somebody referred it to the ballot or something. Is that how it happened?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
That's correct. Washington County Commissioners passed a ban on flavored tobacco products, the sales of flavored tobacco products. Then the business industries gathered enough signatures and then went to the voters. And the voters, 76%, still upheld that flavor ban.
Yeah, that was quite a resounding, approval by the voters. So, I mean, a county commission could do it. The Clackamas County Commission could pass that kind of a ban. And maybe the retailers would be less likely to challenge it given the outcome in Washington County. Is there any indication that that's being considered at the county commissioner, at the Board of County Commissioners?
At this point, we have not had that conversation with the Clackamas County Commissioners. We have talked about having a Clackamas County tobacco retail license in the past. That was before the pandemic, and for obvious reasons, that conversation died. But since the state has passed a larger, broader tobacco retail license, we don't necessarily need to do that at Clackamas County. We could, however, pass some restrictions on the point of sale. So we could pass a restriction on sales for flavor products. We could pass a ban on price promotion. So for example, when people get coupons and they bring the coupon in the convenience store to get a cheaper product, it's possible to prohibit that. Yeah.
Is it possible to just ban them outright?
Flavored products?
Yeah.
Yes.
For city?
Well, for the sale.
That's what so it is possible for a county to do it. Is it possible for a city to do it?
Oh, yes. Yes.
And the enforcement for that, would that still come from the organization that the county has? Would that still come from the county, the enforcement of a ban like that?
Well, the enforcement
of a ban would be easier because you just walk in the store and if there's product, they've broken the rule. It's harder. You have to do sting operations to catch them selling to people underage.
The enforcement would still be from the county, right? To do that, would we do that ourselves?
Yes, if the city of Milwaukie wanted to prohibit the sale of flavored products, yeah, we would have to talk about how that could be enforced. It definitely, I think it could be arranged that local public health, Clackamas County Public Health, could help with the enforcement, but that would be a conversation.
We've probably gone well beyond the scope of what you were expecting to tell us about tonight.
Well, I love going beyond the scope of the conversation. So yes, I'm enjoying this. Thank you.
Does he ever get on?
No.
Councilor Nicodemus is monitoring the meeting and will be coming on later for the parks item.
Okay. Lisa, I have no way to see your hand raised one way or another. Do you have any?
Well, I did have one other question, which I'm going to demonstrate my own ignorance here. But I recently went into a convenience store that I don't go into very often, and there was just a huge bank of aerosol cans of butane. And is that something that's used in the vaping products? Or I was thinking it was, or is that something that's used in somehow using marijuana? I was trying to figure out what all the butane was for.
It's just lighters.
Well, Counselor, I am going to sit in the ignorant camp with you then, because I don't know what cans of butane would be used for.
They usually use them, it's typically used for marijuana. They use them for the resins. They use them for they use the butane for torches, because certain marijuana products have to be ignited to a certain temperature. So they use torches on, I don't know from experience.
Thank you.
I'm just hip like that, so.
Do you have any other questions?
Probably not of you, although we may. I assume we have your contact information.
Yeah, I actually don't have business cards, oddly enough.
If you can leave Scott with your email and phone number, we may have further questions if we decide to explore the path of banning flavored
Absolutely.
products.
One question actually that I wanted to ask earlier, I forgot. Is there any statute or ordinance in place right now that keeps the sales away a certain amount of feet from schools? Is there a minimum distance that these sales, there's not even that?
No.
Wow.
Yes, and that's something else that some jurisdictions have done, is put into place some zoning
Right.
ordinances. I mean, that's what the state has done with the cannabis retailers. They have to be a certain distance away. In fact, that's what Clackamas County Commissioners have done as well. But no, nothing like that for tobacco retail.
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming in. It was an outstanding presentation. It was very interesting. It was helpful to us as we think about what possible things we could do to help, because I agree that not getting kids started on tobacco is a huge step towards ending tobacco use altogether, for anything other than ceremonial reasons.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I've got some stickers if anybody wants.
Ooh.
Your name and then your phone number.
Yes, stickers every time.
Thank you so much.
You didn't take them all? Oh, it's hers. It's hers. Forget.
Very well.
All right. Next item is city manager update.
So I think the only item that I have that I'm not going to be talking about later tonight is actually with Councilor Faulkner's departure, we ended up with a vacancy for the fire district relationship. We're working on getting our next meeting set up. I have spoken with Councilor Khosrowbadi, and he's willing to serve if that works for everyone, but we did just want to make sure it was official on here. Does that work?
Good with it?
Otherwise, we'll be talking about stuff in a few minutes. Thanks.
All right. Community comment. This is part of the agenda during which council will hear community member statements regarding city business. For those in person who wish to speak, please submit a yellow comment card found on the table just outside the door. If you're on Zoom, please use the raised hand reaction to alert staff you wish to speak. And when instructed to begin, click click the microphone option to unmute yourself. If you are calling in through Zoom and would like to make a comment, dial *9 to raise your hand. You may also email comments to ocr@milwaukeeoregon.gov. Before you make your comments, please state your name and city of residence for the record. If you would like the city to follow up with you, please submit your contact information to ocr@milwaukeeoregon.gov. As council has other business items on the agenda this evening, speakers will be limited to 3 minutes each. Because information provided during community comments may be new, the city manager will respond at the next council meeting to those comments that require follow-up. Before we begin, is there any follow-up from the August 2nd community comments, Ms. Ober?
There is no follow-up from the previous meeting.
There's no what?
There's no follow-up from the previous meeting.
All right, Gary, you're up.
I think Mr. Kine wanted to speak on the parks item, so do you want to wait for him to?
Sure.
You want to speak about the parks levy, is that right?
Okay, we'll wait. We'll keep that to the end. Do you have any online?
Double checking. I don't see any hands raised in Zoom. I'm going to double check the email. I do not see any hands raised or comments, Mr. Mayor, for general comments.
All right. Well, we'll do the consent agenda and see if anything pops up. Tonight's consent agenda includes minutes of the City Council for July 19th, 2022, work session, July 19th, 2022, regular session. It includes a resolution appointing Jay Penagos to the Public Safety Advisory Committee and Joshua Freeman to the Planning Commission. And it includes an Oregon Liquor Control Commission application for the office located at 10598 Southeast 32nd Avenue for a change of owner. Does any member of council wish to remove an item from the consent agenda?
No.
In that case, I would entertain a motion.
I move to approve consent agenda as amended.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? None heard. Motion passes unanimously. Consent agenda is approved. Next item is the Parks Levy ballot measure, a referral. I'm presenting this.
No, I am.
Okay, good. I would say I am wholly unprepared to present this.
I'm not much better. So tonight you have a resolution for consideration. This goes back to our conversation last week at the study session. The resolution is drafted in a way that should meet the requirements of the state. After you adopt this, if you do adopt this, thank you, sir, then it would go to our city attorney for 5 or 6 days. They work on it just to make sure that the language meets all the legal requirements, and then we start the submission process. So this is your first step in the process. We would be back here early in September just to let you know that this has been accepted by the Secretary of State, if that's where we're at, or if we need any changes. But otherwise, this would place the levy question onto the ballot for the November election. Are there any questions or anything that anyone would like to talk to me about?
I guess I would just say, I know you're busy, Justin, but I really hope that this can be completely all the T's crossed and the I's dotted, and that we're really confident about that legal language, because having any challenges with a tight timeline like this is going to be really hard. So
the amazing thing is that Justin's been sitting with me for the last 2 weeks. I do appreciate that. But yes, we also had an outside party look at it this week. And we'll look at it again. I also just want to call out that Scott Stopper's been amazing. He's our elections expert and is helping us with the Secretary of State component of this. So thank you to Scott as well.
great.
On that note, Councilor Nicodemus has joined the meeting.
Counselor, online, I guess, Counselor Beatty or Counselor Nicodemus, did you have anything that you wanted me to cover, or any questions about this before we open this up for public comment?
I feel like we gave it a pretty thorough discussion last week at our study session. So I don't have any questions on this item.
Or do I?
Perfect. Thank you both. With that, then I'll leave this to the council's discussion. Thank you.
Usually we have, do we want to do testimony first before we discuss?
Sure.
All right, Gary, why don't you get us started?
Oh,
That's all right.
I've got a timer.
There you go.
My name's Gary Klein. I live at 10795 Southeast Riverway Lane, Milwaukie, Oregon. I'm here tonight to talk about the park levy ballot referral issue. And I just wanted to mention that I lived in Milwaukie the majority of my 75-year life. I originally moved to Milwaukie in 1948, graduate of Milwaukie High School. I'm pro Milwaukie Bay Park and what's going on there. I've worked at Milwaukee's Riverfront Board for about 10 years. I was then transferred over to a task force. I became vice chairman of that. And then it went on hiatus in 2016. I was the last active member. And at that time, I worked to get on the Milwaukee's Park and Recreation Board and have been on that since. Through all this, we've worked on phase 1 and 2 of Milwaukie Bay Park. Phase 1 was Klein Point on the north end of the park. Phase 2 was the new boat launch area and some setup for the future expansion of phase 3. We're now at the phase 3 point, and I sure want to promote that getting completed. I think it would just be absolutely wonderful for the park. I've been involved in Milwaukie Bay Park in other ways, working with the Kellogg Good Neighbor Committee, original founder, one of the original founders of that, and helping fund to get phase 2 into the park and get it going, and other things behind the scene. So if you have any questions on why I'm supporting this Parks Levy ballot measure, let me know.
Actually, I have a question that you might be uniquely qualified to answer. Do you remember why we closed our own Parks Department and joined the North Clackamas Parks District in the first place?
I hate to say I don't know that part. I didn't live in Milwaukie for about a 30-year period. That's when that happened. Now, my folks lived in the current house I'm in, so I was there a lot. My dad used to be involved in the city quite a bit. And matter of fact, when he died, he was still listed on one of the committees after being a councilman in the city 2 different times. So he was very involved too. I don't know.
Okay, thanks.
Sorry.
Questions?
No, thank you for being here, Gary. And thank you for all of your work to get Milwaukie Bay Park going. You've been a dedicated worker. That's me speaking. That was the end of your 3 minutes.
Thank you.
Rebecca, come on up.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Rebecca Stavendroyd. I use she, her pronouns. I live in the Llewellyn neighborhood off of Mason Hill, so thank you for allowing us a few minutes to speak. I'm a mom, and as a parent of a middle schooler, I spend an exceptional amount of time taking my kid to activities, friends' houses, sports, but their favorite place to go is the neighborhood park. It doesn't matter what day it is. It doesn't matter how long a day it's been. They want to go to the park. It's the kickoff for a lot of adventures and hangout time, and they adore it. And it's important to have places like parks for our kids, for our families, for residents of all ages. We're in the Llewellyn neighborhood. We hold a summer concert series, which hopefully we'll see you at tomorrow night. It's amazing after 2 years of a pandemic pause to see neighbors coming together and sharing a sense of community with each other, and we do that in the park. The Llewellyn NDA funds the concert series in our neighborhood for the city, as do our neighbors in Ardenwald. So thank you for the announcement at the beginning of the meeting for those. And as we're finding that the city is becoming more and more populated, the need for events and activities in our neighborhood parks is even greater. That means for all of our residents, that means places to build community, to hold events, to allow kids to explore nature and spend time outdoors. But under our current operating structure, the taxes and system development charges gathered for parks, they serve an entire district. And the residents in Milwaukie don't see the return on investment that we should for our local amenities. Recent park developments have been sparked by recovery dollars, by local leaders who have prioritized parks and recreation, which is amazing, but that's not sustainable. And it would be amazing to have local control of our funds to develop parks at a pace that matches the growth in our city. This weekend, we saw community members coming together at Milwaukie Bay Park, which is an incredible location. It would be really terrific to be able to offer even more amenities and opportunities to get together. And we need to do that as we begin to build community together again. So we're here today wearing green in support of the resolutions that you have coming before you. And we're saying yes to parks, and we hope that you do too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Double checking email, and I will only report that just before the regular session started, council received correspondence in support of the Parks Levy from Lisa Lashbrook, and that was received by email, and I believe all councils received a copy of that. So other than that, Mr. Mayor, I don't see any other speaker cards or people on Zoom.
I heard a rumor that Lisa Gunyon-Rinker was on Zoom.
Yes, and just as you said that, the hand was raised, but now, but now it has been lowered, so.
Lisa, would you like to speak?
Okay, all right. Oh, it keeps moving. Lisa Gunyon-Rinker, you should be able to speak now.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you, councilors and mayor, for moving forward with a levy like this. I've been involved with parks since I moved to the area about 24 years ago. And I've worked with Tybin Johnson Park on our Portland side of our neighborhood. I live in Ardenwald, Johnson Creek, 3012 Southeast Balfour Street. And I've been involved with Tybin Johnson Park for many, many years. I've been involved in our neighborhood parks, getting a new neighborhood park area for Balfour Street Park on the west side of 32nd. I have volunteered to be on the Parks Board and was on that for 8 years, where we moved forward with phase 1 and phase 2 of Milwaukie Bay Park. And one thing I really think is important about Milwaukie Bay Park, being a regional park for the area, is that when we did phase 2, the main point of leaving at phase 2 was that phase 3 would follow. It wouldn't take that long because most of the park is inaccessible to a lot of different people with developmental issues and disabilities. And so I think leaving the park without more access to the green space is unacceptable. And the fact that it's taken so long, even now, to get from phase 2 to phase 3 does not do service to many parts of our community. So I just wanted to raise that issue because that's something that strongly resonates with me. And I also wanted to say that we wouldn't be able to move forward right now without the help of our legislative and Senate representatives for 3 other undeveloped parks. And then we have another one, Dogwood Park, that also needs to be developed. So we have a slate of undeveloped parks that need attention, as well as we have parks that need maintenance that has been overdue. We have equipment for kids that's tired. We have all kinds of reasons why we do need money to stay in Milwaukie and work on issues that Milwaukie has. as far as our parks and green spaces go. We've made some serious triumphs, I think, with the trolley trail and with the Kronberg Park and getting Wichita Park in the neighborhood over the years. I think we've done some good things. And I think our partners, staff at NCPRD have been wonderful. But I do think that a levy such as you're proposing is important. Although I do have concerns, and I understand that, you know, saying that it would be the same dollar amount that Clackamas County now charges us, I'm willing to see how that works for the proposed 5 years. But my thought is that we are going to need more funds for our parks and to support them. But anyway, I support your levy as it stands, and I wanted you to know you're doing a great job, and parks are so important for everyone and they need to be accessible for all. So thank you.
The only other people on Zoom are staff, Mr. Mayor, and I don't see any emails and no more registration cards.
Okay. Well, Lisa brings up an excellent question. It is factual that we risk losing our SDCs or some portion thereof due to the machinations of the North Clackamas Board. Lisa, you might be uniquely qualified to answer this, or staff maybe, but do you have some calculation that indicates that our 54 cents per thousand parks fee, which we all know is dramatically lower than it should be relative to any other parks district of a similar size, that our 54 cents per thousand somehow goes elsewhere, given that we have on a per square mile or per capita basis, either one, more parks than the rest of the district?
Mr. Mayor, I apologize. Oh, good. You heard that, Lisa?
Can you hear me?
Yeah. You heard the mayor's question? Lisa, did you hear? Yeah, okay, go ahead and answer.
Yeah, I don't know exactly where that funding has gone for all these years, 50 cents on the dollar. But if you look at other districts like ours, if you look at even Happy Valley's new district, as far as their city funding, theirs is much higher than ours, as is Tualatin Hills, much higher than ours. Sometimes I think they're almost 3 times that amount. And I'm just not sure. 54 cents on the dollar, if we have staff and maintenance and then also development improvements, I'm not sure how far that would go, but we'll have to see.
Well, and city staff did run the numbers, and then they ran the numbers again, and then they ran the numbers again to prove that we could provide service at the current level or better and work out a deferred maintenance program for our parks to make up for that $940,000 deferred maintenance deficit that we have incurred in our parks under NCPRD.
Well, I guess the question that I would have what about when new projects come along? Because that's going to be necessary. I know in my neighborhood in Ardenwell, there's a Monroe Street development with 234 apartments there, and then we'll have Hillside, which is Clackamas County housing, which will add an additional 400 units. And I know there's some green space that are on site for each one, but again, I can see with density, like we're potentially going to incur, I can see us needing more new development of parks.
Right, and that's typically paid for through system development charges, which every developer pays. That's a one-time fee that they pay at the beginning of a development like that. And those,
Sorry.
yeah, I was just going to say right now, we know from the District Advisory Committee for NCPRD that they are discussing mingling our SDCs at a point where we have approximately $3 million coming in the next 3 years to build more parks because we're getting dense. They want to make those funds available everywhere instead of keeping them specifically within Milwaukie. And they, last I heard, were looking at doing that as soon as November or January. So
that's the reason why I think this levy is a good idea. I don't agree with taking the funding out of Milwaukie because we are having the density and we're having the growth.
Right.
Those people need to have their green space. They're moving here and living here. So I agree with what you're doing. But even in the areas where the growth is occurring, SDCs, and I'll just because I know this, SDCs for Monroe Street Apartments say they're going to Milwaukie Bay Park, even though it's not in the neighborhood where it's located. It's at least within the city. But it's not directly where the density is, but at least it's staying close by.
Right.
So I understand.
May I just make one comment? So one of the things that came up in this discussion was what happened with the needs for more amenities. Staff does not know. We don't have those answers. Part of what, the discussion we've had with council is that if this, whatever happens, if the council decides to leave the Parks District, the city would need to engage in a master planning process. It's pretty robust. And in coming with that is a discussion about, do you want these enough to pay for them? And that could be a future ballot measure. A ballot measure would be a construction ballot measure, something that would actually construct more spaces or buy more spaces. There's also talk about money becoming more available at Metro again for these types of spaces. So I guess what I'm letting you know is we don't have the path, and we won't have the path forward on how we pay for these things until we have that conversation with you all, and you tell us how you want to do that.
And when that occurs, if the levy passes, that decision will be the decision of Milwaukee's voters on how that proceeds, not a district of 100,000 plus people. It will be Milwaukie making decisions about Milwaukie. Sorry, is there someone, sorry.
So the SDCs speak to the development of any new facilities. The fact is we are bringing 4 new parks online. We currently have deferred maintenance on the parks we currently have at 54 cents per thousand. It begs the question of, is 54 cents per thousand sufficient to not only catch up with our deferred maintenance, but to then service all of the new parks that we are bringing online?
And that was, I guess, what I was trying to say before. I don't know. I mean, I can tell you right now, we can maintain the ones that are coming online. If the community wants more, that would have to be a master planning process, and it would have to be a part of this broader conversation about what it takes to maintain them, what the level of services that we're expecting, what the level of service is for pickleball, or what's the level of service for baseball, or what's the level of service, so that we can make some educated assessments about what it would cost, and then have a conversation in the future with the community about whether or not that's something they want to do. But right now, what we believe is that we can maintain the assets. We've talked about the number of parks that the city has, and we do have about 50% of the parks. Those 50%, however, only make about 19% of the land mass that's currently maintained by NCPRD. So something to just keep in mind is when we're comparing the cost of mowing in this space versus another, or natural spaces is really the place where a lot of these costs are, because you have to go in and do hand physical labor in those spaces. We have about the percentage of the budget, if that makes sense. So 19% of the land is equal to about 19% of the constituency that we have here in Milwaukie for the district.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Is that clear as mud?
Makes sense.
Okay, thanks.
So as Lisa was saying, other parks districts that are highly functional parks districts, like Tualatin, like Bend, I believe is 4 times what we're currently considering putting on the ballot. She said Tualatin Hills is roughly 3 times. Happy Valley is significantly higher than what we're considering putting on the ballot. Several years ago, when the Parks District, when the question was being asked of the voters, should we form a new Parks District? The strange rules around Parks Districts are that when you form the district, you have to state the maximum amount you will ever in the world charge for that Parks District, which is bizarre because costs go up, and but that is state law. So when they were exploring it the last time, I think they were asking, Lisa, correct me if I'm wrong, 84 cents per thousand?
May have
I think it
been
was 89.
89 cents per thousand. Which even then wasn't really sufficient, but it was at least closer. I have serious concerns that we are starting off, with a city whose staff is already overly busy with all the other things that we're doing, starting off underfunding our Parks District that we are hoping to form, and at which point we will have to then do other things. We'll have to pass a bond measure, or we'll have to put a fee on the water bill, or we'll have to do something else to make up the difference.
Well, I don't want to interrupt you.
Jump right in.
I do have a response to that.
Go ahead.
I mean, I hear you. I was a supporter of the 89 cents back 8 years ago. I do think we will have to have a serious conversation at some point about a higher rate, but this is a 5-year levy, and it allows us to do the groundwork that needs to be done, the master planning that needs to be done to see what the citizens want, that they are willing to, having that conversation, that robust public conversation with the residents helps us, it informs what we think needs to be in the master plan, and informs them as to sort of what the costs are to get the skate park and the pickleball courts and the community center, or whatever the wish list might be. So, I hear you that it's not enough in the long run, but I think it's the right figure for this year.
And I agree, and I appreciate you highlighting, Councilor Beatty, that it gives us time to run the process and really find out what residents want. Because I can speculate all that I want about that, but other than knowing that we want to get Milwaukie Bay Park built, and we know that it's not happening under the current NCPRD leadership, I don't really know what Milwaukie residents want, and it's going to take some time to figure that out. And I'm not comfortable setting an arbitrary higher rate. I want to really have the community conversation, and the part where staff has done the work and assures us that it is possible to continue our current service levels and bring those new parks into service as well. I think we are well set, and that will be fine at 54 cents for 5 years. And I look forward to the conversation with the community. I think this is a wonderful opportunity for us to think about how equity works in the community in our public spaces. I think it's a great opportunity for us to better understand our relationship with nature in this setting. And I think it plays a tremendous role in building a community that is going to look a little different because we do have new residents coming in and we have new residences coming in. So.
I have a question for staff. And I understand you probably don't have exact numbers for either parts of this question, but I have two questions. One, how much time to date would you say you've spent in this process? And when I say you, I mean the entirety of staff. In this process leading up to this moment that we're considering.
Are we talking about the process in which you gave me direction in May, or are we talking about the process since I arrived?
Let's call it since May.
Okay. So since May, several hundred hours. I think it's probably
Several
fair.
meaning 3, several meaning 9.
I'm not sure. I mean, I think that between, yeah, we're going to go with several hundred. That's as close as I can get tonight.
And going forward, before we have funding to pay for staff, how many hours do you think staff will have to put in?
It depends on which part of the process you're talking about. You know, we have a legal process right now that's going on. And I think that the city attorney and I are going to be pretty highly involved in that process for the coming months. I also think the public works director will probably be sitting at those tables. I also think there's a discussion about, sans the discussion tonight about how you pay for it, there's a discussion about what it looks like to start a department. What's the staffing requirements? What's the investment? What are the job descriptions? What do we take to the Parks Board? How do we engage with our community early on in this process? We have a master plan, a small master plan that we need to do to set our SDC rates. And then we'll do a much larger master plan if you all decide to leave. I should also, I guess my question back is this with the assessment that we are leaving? Or is this with the assessment that we're asking voters a specific question on a levy? My involvement in the levy is very small after tonight. Mm-hmm. My involvement in if you all decide to leave is significantly larger.
That's the question.
Okay, the leaving part.
The leaving part.
I think, so you're talking about the legal strategy, or you're also talking about the master planning, the staffing strategy. The long-term master planning would be, you know, when we leave and what studies we need to do by when in order to make the decisions that this council wants to make and the next council wants to make. So it really is, I can tell you how many I'm spending probably in the next month, but it's going to be dependent on what council gives me direction for in each of these iterations and steps before I can give you that full picture. In the next month, I think we've got some time in mediation. We have some time with the court. We have an RFP that we're drafting. So I would say it's probably 40 hours over the course of the next month. That number goes up depending on each step and what you all decide you want to spend time on.
40 hours total between the three of you?
For the next month, yeah. Mediation is a day. We've done a lot of the research on the staffing levels to make sure that we could look you in the eye and say, we could do this if you all decided you wanted to leave. So a lot of that research is behind us, but with each subsequent step, the hours that it will take will grow. So that's from now until, what is it, the 16th of August? I would say 16th of August till September 16th that we're probably looking at 40 hours.
So the time that has been spent over the last since May and the time predicted to be spent until funds are coming in to pay for that staff time. What is it we're not doing with staff time? That is what is being displaced, I guess, is the question.
Well, as I've discussed with council, I typically am not a project manager. So right now, honestly, the thing that's being displaced is leadership from me. Time with new employees, time with preparing for a new council, time for preparing for candidates running for office. So that's probably the biggest piece of this. There's another discussion on the agenda tonight to talk about the Kellogg Dam. That's taking a significant amount of time from our assistant city manager or public works director trying to figure that out. So right now, to be honest, the city staff are just trying to do as many of the things and keep as many of the things going as we can until some of these decisions are made so that we know which ones are naturally falling off and which ones are coming to a close or not going to close that you all are going to proceed with. And we have a number of those sort of big questions out there right now.
And for folks who may not be familiar, typically we have council goals. Mm-hmm. And right now we have 2. We are allowed up to 3. So some of the staff capacity that Ann and others are putting toward this comes from the part where we have 2 goals instead of 3 goals.
Yeah, and I think there's also, Kellogg Dam has also often been on that list that council's talked about as being important. One of the commitments that all the staff have made over the last 6 years is when an opportunity arises, we try to not say no if it's really a once in a lifetime shot, right? So for Kellogg Dam, Kelly's going to talk about it later tonight, but it's an opportunity to get $15 million towards a project of import to this community that's been important for 100 and some years. We don't want to miss it. So we're leaning in a little bit to the extra stress and work, trying to get some of these things out the door, recognizing that not all of them will happen. And there will be a point when I have to come back to council if they all come to fruition and say, what do you want to do? Because there's only so much capacity.
And I will say when we discussed our goals last, which I mean, Councilor Kostrobody wasn't on council yet, and I think it was summer, maybe like this time last year, more or less. Mm-hmm. I mean, we foresaw that both parks and Kellogg Dam were things were percolating about and things were happening, and they might become more urgent than they were at that point. And I do think, in both cases, we have projects the city has worked on for 20 years or more. And we have some opportunities and some opportunities that won't be here in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. So, I appreciate staff leaning in to get these things moving.
And Kellogg was actually a council goal as recently as 8 years ago, the removal of Kellogg Dam, mm-hmm. and it was left that when an opportunity arose,
you jump.
It should be chased after. So it's appropriate that we're doing that. All right. Any other questions or discussions?
Would you like someone to make a motion?
Sure, make a motion.
I move to approve the resolution calling for an election in the city of Milwaukie on November 8th, 2022, to submit to city voters the establishment of a 5-year Parks and Recreation local option levy in place of the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation tax.
I second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve the resolution calling for an election in the city of Milwaukie on November 8th, 2022, to submit to city voters the establishment of a 5-year Parks and Recreation local option levy in place of the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation tax. Is there any further discussion? So I have some. In a vacuum, I support everything we can to make our parks better, bigger, more, to improve them. I worked very hard to add 13 acres for free to our parks several years ago and made that happen. I don't take parks lightly. I've also worked very hard to try and get our partner, North Clackamas Parks District, to do their job. I worked pretty hard to get the Parks District to change, to occur last time it was brought to a vote for the higher rate and with an elected body, which would have replaced the Clackamas County Commission as the elected body. That opportunity is coming up again in May to pursue both of those things, theoretically. I also don't believe that 54 cents per thousand is enough to run a parks district. I have known that to be a fact since I got on this council. And I have been advocating since this discussion began to take to the voters a more appropriate number. Yes, we do not know what the perfect number is. What we do know for a fact is that 54 cents is not enough. That's a fact. So for all those many reasons, and for the fact that we have staff with limited bandwidth, we have other things that we are attempting to do. We are attempting to make significant changes in our climate to stop climate change. We are still building out our safe routes to school system. We are attempting to pass a brand new transportation system plan that could dramatically change the way we consider and utilize and plan for and build transportation systems within the city. All of these require significant staff bandwidth. When you underfund something, what almost always happens is that bandwidth comes out of other places. So other things will be done less well than they would otherwise. So for all those reasons, I will be voting no tonight on this levy because I think it's ill-considered. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I said aye, but maybe I. Yeah.
There you go.
No. All right, motion passes 4-1. The next item is Park System Development Charges Resolution. Is over.
So in 2018, City Council passed a resolution that would allow for the commingling, your support of the commingling of SDCs with the remaining funds from the rest of NCPRD. Based on tonight and the discussions about the need to secure those SDCs, my question and the resolution is calling, do you want to change your past resolution and instead ask that they continue to be protected for this district? Okay. That's all I have.
Okay. Any discussion, questions?
We had a pretty thorough discussion of this in the work session about how 2018 was a very different time, and there's a lot more money at stake right now than there was in 2018, and more than we ever imagined would be at stake in 2018 when we passed this resolution.
and promises were being made in 2018 that have not been fulfilled.
Very true. Yeah.
In that case,
Yeah, exactly. In 2018, we thought
Yeah.
Milwaukie Bay Park was going to start being built in 2020.
Yeah.
actually, I think it was supposed to be 2019, but
Was.
yes. I would entertain a motion.
Someone else wanted to do it? I can do it.
I move to approve the resolution rescinding support for eliminating zones within the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District for the purpose of system development charge fund distribution.
I'll second. Oh, sorry. Did you want to second, Lisa?
It's okay, it's fine. Go ahead.
It has been moved and seconded to approve the resolution rescinding support for eliminating zones within the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District for the purposes of system development charge fund distribution. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None heard. It passes unanimously.
Mayor, before we continue, I believe there is the agenda. We want to flip the next agenda items. We're asking that Steve Adams actually go first.
All right.
Thank you.
Fine. Steve, come on up. The next item will be Main Street Trees and Sidewalks, an update by our city engineer, Steve Adams. Thank you guys for coming in.
Yeah. I can start sharing it. It's just basically the attachments. Yeah. Yeah. Just basically in case there's other questions. I'll just. Okay. Yep. Scroll that. Okay, perfect.
Well, good evening. Am I up? You ready for me? All right, good evening. Happy August. Steve Adams, city engineer, here to talk again about what to do with the downtown and sidewalks and trees and kind of what we want to, as a city, look for in the future if we're interested in kind of changing how we lay the trees and sidewalk out. So had this discussion back in June. I believe all three of you were here then, right? I believe Councilor Brody was part of it?
Yeah.
Okay. And the question came up about the price. And then back then, Natalie had emailed us in the middle of the meeting saying, hey, the website says $14 to $18 per cubic foot installed is a common price. And I talked more to the consultant, AKS, and they verified, also talking to the company that installs these, and they went with the $18 per square foot, per cubic foot price. Of 14, I think, is a few years ago, post-COVID or something, I don't know, but everything's about 18 a cubic foot. And there's also some information about how much cubic foot you should have per tree well, but then there's a note saying that if you tie the tree wells together, that you need less because the trees can share the soil from each other, and so you get a better system by tying the cells together, which is what I had presented and had thought about doing here. And then again, topping it with the pervious concrete so the stormwater doesn't run off in the stores, it doesn't run off in the street, it just soaks right through it, helps water the trees, give the trees a little more moisture. And then, as I mentioned, the soil actually acts as a water clarifying, just similar to what we have in our stormwater light facilities. So with an anticipated size of, I estimate about 8 foot in width, and 120 feet long and about 2.5 feet thick. We get around 2,400 cubic feet, and the price of that is right around, I'll just say 40 to 45,000. And the concrete on top is actually it's just the cells and the soil and installation, but that was the estimate I've gotten from two sources now.
That's roughly 45,000 per block face.
It would be, yeah, for these 5 trees and for the area that we have, 120 feet of street, it would be about 45,000.
Right, and I know we're talking about a specific project, but I like to think about it as a system, and, you know, as we're gonna, this is gonna not be our last rodeo.
It will not. We have other trees and other sidewalks that are broken out right across the street near Key Bank. There's some sidewalk that's uplifted, and we'll need to think about something going into the future.
What does the concrete, so when we have to replace concrete, what's the concrete cost per block face?
Concrete runs, right now installed sidewalk runs around $6 per square foot. So again, if you have a block that's, I mean, I think that downtown blocks are right around 180 feet, 200 feet.
Is that right?
Somewhere around 200 feet is the average downtown block. And if the width of it, again, I'm not going up right against a building, so I'm thinking from curb out. We have about a 12-foot sidewalk most of downtown. So we just put these in the outer 8 feet. So 8 by 200 is 1,600 times $6. So 1,600, 16, it's $12,000 for the sidewalk to go on top, I think.
12,000 per block face? I was remembering something more along the lines of $150,000 per block face, or
8 times 200.
We were told I mean, that was public area requirements, so it was more than just the pavement, but still, we were told that like $250,000 estimate.
But that
Oh,
yeah, that includes curb and gutter and all that.
curb and gutter, you're saying, yeah. So the
Just saying sidewalks.
yeah, sidewalk itself, a common price right now is around $6 per square foot. And so at 1,600 square feet per block, you have, or just shy of $10,000. 1,600 square feet times 6 is just shy of 10,000. That's the concrete price. And then there'd be other prices installed.
So the whole block face, the concrete price of the sidewalk is 1,600. That can't be right.
200 feet by 8 foot width is 1,600 square feet, yeah. And even if you just say $10 per square foot, they go high, you still at $16,000. But the more concrete you do, the lower the price goes down. So if you are installing small bits, the price goes up. But for a block of concrete, you're going to get a pretty good price on it because it's a lot of material out there.
That would just be for that concrete only. So
Yeah.
There's other parts of the project in terms of like project mobilization and those other parts, and that would just be
Yeah.
So there's other aspects of that.
So I guess maybe I should have been more clear about what I was trying to make the case for, was that installing these cells would keep us from replacing sidewalks every 15 years. And the cost of replacing those sidewalks every 15 years was X. The cells for Y, I was assuming that X was going to be a whole lot higher, given that $250,000 were always told per block. And that was 8 years ago.
I think it keeps you from having to replace sidewalks and going and fixing and replacing curbs and pavement that's impacted by those tree roots.
Yeah. In this stretch here, curb is also affected, and curb runs, current cost for curb is somewhere between, well, right now on the Homewood project, we're paying $28 a foot for curb and gutter to be installed. So figure $30 per foot. And if you got 200 feet of curb times 30, that's another $6,000.
And then you have the pavement reconstruction associated with adjacent to the curb. So
Yeah.
So I mean, there's more than just the individual quantity of the sidewalk in a project is small in comparison.
Well, yeah, I wasn't really asking the price. What are the guys going to charge us to pour the concrete? I was asking what the price is from. We have a broken sidewalk to we have a fixed sidewalk.
Okay. So
So you'd also have to include like sidewalk removal and.
There'd be the demolition price, which would be for that. I mean, demolition is usually a lump sum, but if I would think of 1,600 square feet, you're probably looking at a couple grand, take it out, maybe more. You have to put in the erosion control measures at all your catch basins around there. So that'll run $1,000, $2,000 for all your erosion control measures there. If it's not designed, just coming in and repairing, replacing everything. Per block, you're probably talking, I don't know, I would think at least 25, 30,000. The 250 is really high. I'm not sure where that came from, but I would think the block rate for the sidewalk be somewhere around 25, 30K.
Well, yeah, I mean, maybe a little bit more. I mean, there's probably some, street signs and things like that need to be adjusted. So, I mean, there's other components there of that.
Benches have to be pulled
It's all
and
those sort of
replaced.
things that have to
Bike
be.
parking has to be pulled and replaced.
All those things have to be moved.
Yeah.
So the sidewalk, that sidewalk concrete piece is just that material cost and installation.
Keep in mind that
There's other parts of that project.
10 years ago, I was paying about $3 per square foot for sidewalk, 3 or 4. So now we're 6 going up to 10, depending on the size of the project and the bids. So if you replace the sidewalk in 10 more years, maybe the sidewalk's $12 to $15 per square foot then.
Right.
So it just keeps getting expensive. And these things, once you put them in, they're not going to be needing to be repaired or redone or anything.
Right.
Yeah, and then
the
there's the
sidewalk will
additional
last 100 years.
stormwater benefits that those cells provide.
Right. So it sounds like the cells ballpark costs about the same as the replacement of a sidewalk-ish
I would think so.
per block.
I would think so. And then, again, to add the extra water quality, if you want to do water quality, then you got to pay the price of that, and that can be quite significant.
Right.
And these act as the water quality. So I think it's a fairly good combination of protecting the sidewalk, I'd love to see how fast the trees grow. Courtney, pick out the right kind of tree, put it in there, the right soil. I'd love to see how fast the trees recover and get to a decent size.
And I love the idea of allowing them to interconnect. That's huge. Will make a significant difference for the trees.
Cool. Thanks for getting the costs.
Sure.
It's helpful to have that.
Okay. Are we?
Any questions? No. Lisa or Desi?
I believe Councilor Nicodemus left before this item started, so it's just Councilor Beatty online.
Okay. Lisa?
So is the question about doing this on one block as a demonstration, or is the question about making this our downtown standard now?
I think it's making it our downtown standard based on how well it performs over the next few years that we see it go in. I mean, as we be putting it in, we'll be evaluating and looking at it. And, I'm sure where the stormwater comes out in the catch basin, we can have Galen go out, take some water samples, kind of take it off the street, take it out of there. We get some data back on how it's cleansing the stormwater differently when what's landing on sidewalk that is not treated. So I think there's some data that we can come back with. I think that'll help shape the discussion as to whether this is a standard thing to use everywhere. But I think we can collect a lot of information, just like when we put the pervious pavement down on Lake Road. I was going by someone's data out in Gresham that this is a good thing. And now we've done some testing of stormwater on Lake Road here, and it's proved to be pretty true that it actually does clean up the water. So it now reinforces the idea that we should look at other streets that we can do a pervious pavement on and get the stormwater quality benefits out of it. So.
And my only comment to that, I had thought it was maybe more of a demonstration project. My only concern is that my understanding is that right now the downtown sidewalks are the responsibility of the businesses.
Yes.
I do have some hesitation about moving away from that and the city just taking over responsibility for those. I would like to see some consideration of cost sharing if this is to be what happens downtown. If the city pays for the cells, that's great, but it's a little awkward to have a completely different standard in place for one section of town from everything else.
Yeah, this business here replaced their sidewalk like 9 years ago now. It's been a couple years since all started, and they were very reluctant to keep putting money out unless we were going to do something with the trees. So I imagine we can go back to them and say, hey, council's approved this new system. It'll be impervious concrete, a little bit more, but we can probably negotiate a price with them. So for the amount of concrete you were going to replace, it's X amount of dollars. You kick in that amount, we will build the rest of it. And in the future, you should not have a concern about replacing the sidewalk again. I think that could be a pretty firm sell. And then on any future, if it's a city project, it's not price sidewalk, we put Tim to work and have him cite the business or something. And then we come in and say, hey, this is a product that we will share costs. Granted, we'll pay the majority of the costs up front, but I think it's something we can work with businesses. I think for downtown that we want to reinvigorate and reestablish the businesses. I think the more they see us working with them, I think it'll encourage them to stay or to locate here.
Just a quick question. With the businesses downtown, they are, just keep in mind, majority of them are small businesses.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes those costs may be too excessive for them. Can we have something in place for those that can't afford to maybe pitch in the X amount of dollars?
She's the money person.
Can I jump in just real quick? I'm Kelly, I'm Brooks, the Assistant City Manager. So just in terms of like what we're asking for right now, all of these are great points. All of what you're making are good points. In just full transparency, this is actually a pretty small step that we could take right now that would have fallen under contracting limits. It's something we could have done without having a policy discussion about it. We brought this to you all because they're highly visible trees. It's been under discussion for a long time. And we just wanted to make sure that before we take this step, that you all would be okay with it. I think there's a lot of long-term, larger policy issues that then could have implications based on how this turns out that I'm not really prepared to answer today. I've got, we certainly have some programs and some money programmed for Main Street improvement and urban renewal, and some grant improvement dollars there. But I think for now, this is kind of a surgical strike on a long-term issue that's creating liability for the city today. And so we believe, the staff believe it's in our best interest to go ahead and make this targeted investment, see if this works, make sure you guys are all okay with it. We've checked in with, the NDA too, just to make sure it's going to be okay. Let's put it in. Let's see if it works. But I'm certainly not here today ready to say, yep, and that means we can do this all downtown, that we can absorb this cost for every adjacent property owner. Frankly, none of that is true right now. But I do think we'll have better information once we go through this process that could inform our downtown street standards. It will certainly inform how we would proceed with the larger Main Street improvement projects that we have funded through urban renewal. Does that make sense? So, I apologize for any confusion, because it's, on some level, it's a little bit of a micro question I'm asking you all. But we just wanted to have it very publicly so that there was no surprises with relation to what happens to our downtown trees. Does that make sense? Okay.
Yeah, this is the reason I asked the broader question is, as long as I have been on council, this has been a sore spot, because it was a former mayor and a group of citizens that planted all of those trees in downtown, and then turned around and made rules that said, and you property owners or you store owners or whoever have to replace the sidewalks when our trees break up the sidewalks. So as you can imagine, that's not been a happy conversation, and it just is ongoing. So that's why I'm very interested in solutions that get us trees and less upset business owners.
Great. Thank you. So I'm seeing some head nods. It sounds like we can kind of keep moving down this path.
Please.
And then use what we learned to inform kind of those broader policy steps next. Does that work? Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. And you may as well stay up.
I know, I just gotta go get my stuff.
Sure. We'll take a 5-minute recess. welcome back. Our next and final item this evening, I think, is the North Clackamas Watersheds Council Cooperative Study Agreement, a discussion which will be presented by our Assistant City Manager, Kelly Brooks.
Hello, thank you. There's no action tonight. Just want to kind of tell you where we are in the anticipation of coming back to you with an action request, hopefully a month. So I know that many of you are very familiar with the elements of the Kellogg Creek Dam Removal Project. I think the mayor may have taken this picture. I'm not sure. I have a file of pictures. But if you haven't heard about it, it's been long discussed in Milwaukie. It would essentially remove the dam that is underneath the 99E bridge. You can see it here along with a fish ladder that does not carry fish. And it carries ducks. It carries ducks. The purpose of the project, and I took this directly from an application, a funding application that we recently turned into NOAA, is to create access and to Kellogg and Mount Scott watershed spawning and juvenile rearing and migration habitat for Willamette and Lower Columbia ESA, that's Endangered Species Act, listed salmonids. And so what happens when you take the dam out is you remove what's fondly referred to as a warm water impoundment. It's our lake. It's a big body of hot water that's not great for fish.
Very shallow hot water.
It's very shallow, it's very warm, and so it's blocking access to a lot of really great habitat for endangered fish. And so when you take the dam out, you allow that to be restored to its more natural state. And it also has the added benefit of helping provide storage for floods, which we know are increasing, unfortunately, more and more. So the benefits of the project have long been known, honestly, and well discussed. We're in a unique spot. I know when I first heard about it, was very familiar with, frankly, pretty controversial dam removal projects in other parts of the state and in the country. This is not that. It's not controversial politically, but it has been very, very difficult to pay for. And that has been its primary stumbling block. And that's what I want to talk to you about tonight, is because some things have changed on that front, which is positive. So a few months ago, 5 or 6 months ago, thanks, and again, I got to give a lot of credit. Well, there's a lot of credit to pass around with all things Kellogg Dam, many years of work put forward by local champions of the project, and also kind of the energizer bunny that is Neil Schulman over at North Clackamas Watershed. And his efforts led to Senator Merkley helping to secure, along with the rest of the congressional delegation, an earmark. Those are now called congressionally directed spending. So we don't call them earmarks anymore. We call them congressionally directed spending, and CDS for short. So if I say CDS later, that's what I'm talking about. That was for $585,000. About $51,000 of that actually is being retained by the city, or can be billed by the city. I probably need Council President Heisey to explain to me federal grant funding requirements, because I'm on round 5 of submitting a form to NOAA to help explain our hours and whatnot. But the most important thing to understand about this money is it is helping pay to get us to a preferred alternative for the channel design itself. And the city, in order to receive the funds, the Watershed Council was not an eligible recipient. The city had to be the eligible recipient. And so that means, even though most of the money isn't coming to us, we're officially getting it and then passing it through. And so what I'm going to be bringing you back is an agreement that we sign with North Clackamas Watershed Council, saying, hey, before I give you this money, here's all the ways we signed our life away with the federal government and all the rules we have to follow. And I need you to follow those rules to make sure that we're all on the up and up before the money starts to flow. The schedule as it was submitted is that the funds will start to flow in the fall. So this is pretty quick. I'm hoping to keep it relatively straightforward. There is a lot of duplicative processes that we're going to go through. So I have a relatively high level of confidence that everyone's going to be checking to make sure T's are crossed and I's are dotted at multiple levels, but we do need something in place before we can start passing through the money. And I shouldn't say, I actually think it will be largely reimbursement based as well. So just so full transparency, I had originally thought that the money would come, it would come through us and we would pass it through, kind of throw it over the fence, but with the rules. That isn't how it's going to be. Just because I know y'all are having a lot of conversations about staff. It won't be like that. Unfortunately, it will be more involved. So it will be more on a cost reimbursement basis, which means how often we process those requests and all that. I got to get into quite a bit of kind of nitty gritty with our finance office in particular. So, but that, it's a good thing, the $585,000, and you all already knew about that. And many of you attended an event to celebrate those funds. So the new thing is actually in the infrastructure package that was passed last year. There's significant resources provided to NOAA, which is the federal agency that's overseeing this work primarily. And it was a pretty tight turnaround, released an opportunity to apply for barrier removal funds. The NCWC had been working with American Rivers, who has successfully received this type of money before and conducted urban restoration projects not too dissimilar from this. And so I had been working with them. We kind of knew it was coming. They pulled together the application. We are in that application. We are referenced as a partner. We have some staff time that we've built into that budget to the tune of about $150,000 over 3 years. It's a $15 million request. If that money is received by American Rivers, what you get for the $15 million is essentially a fully designed project, all components, bridge, sediment, containment, restoration. You do not get to full construction funding with that. The reason why I think we're more hopeful is there are additional. Being fully designed is a big deal. Having permits fully in hand is a big deal. And that design work, the way currently conceived, probably would be running through ODOT for the bridge piece of it, which means it would be then it would be a fully funded project for design in the STIP. And there are additional funds that are expected to be released soon by USDOT for culvert replacement specifically. So we're in this pretty unique.
Do we qualify as a culvert?
It's a pretty unique time. Which I'm sure other people have felt this way in the past, and maybe I'm just the most recent person to feel this way. But it is a pretty unique time where we have an authorized and appropriated funding programs, both with NOAA and the DOT at the federal level, that needs to move fast. This project's actually jumping on those in the first round. And NOAA did explicitly ask, I think we have a lot of support from NOAA for the project, and they recommended the maximum funding award to go for is $15 million, and that is what NOAA recommended that we apply for. So that all sounds good. I think it's still a lot between now and when anyone would see anything happening. We won't know if the funds are awarded until end of this year, early next. Then if those funds are awarded, then you're in agreement land. It would take time. It would be the spring when you would need to have that agreement with American Rivers, and then you would need some sub-agreements in place with us, NCWC, and ODOT for those other pieces, and that would be in that late spring, summer period. But it's actually all kind of exciting, to be honest. But it is a lot. So I've kind of been doing keeping it moving pieces to try on our end just to make sure that we aren't foreclosing opportunities during this time, because they are pretty unique due to the funding packages that have been passed. And I think that's worked so far. I think trying to get this agreement to you is going to be a bit of a lift, but also, again, we don't want to be the reason why funds aren't flowing. So I'm doing my best to get those pieces pulled together in the next bit here, and so that everyone can look at it and make sure they're okay with it. So you'll see that's what I'm working on right now, is a funding agreement specific to the congressionally directed spending funds. We will continue, Tessie from our engineering team has been participating in the technical advisory committee for the channel design, and she's going to continue that work. I've been keeping Peter apprised so that he can keep his team apprised, because there are certainly natural resources elements to this moving forward in terms of the restoration, but also trying to kind of keep them at bay, because they're very busy with other things right now too, until the funds actually are real and start to flow. And we just wait. We wait for a couple months and see if the money is real or not. So, but it's feeling tangible. It's feeling tangible right now.
So 15 mil is awesome.
Yeah.
Last ODOT estimate that I recall was more in the 22 mil range.
Yeah, I may have even been up to 26. So I think the way to think about it, and again, I just want to be absolutely clear, this doesn't get you to full construction. But I have not seen very many projects that get to complete design that don't go to construction. Once, that's a big threshold to have a fully designed project that's permitted, and with access to specific federal resources that are tied to culvert replacement and other options. So I do fully expect that there will be another round of probably intense lobbying that happens by project partners to complete the funding package for the construction. But I'm much more bullish that can happen with a $15 million investment behind it.
So if this is being funded by federal culvert funds, there are state culvert funds that are also awarded every year that we keep getting passed over for because we would use the entire budget for our project. This time we wouldn't use the entire budget for our project.
Right. Yeah, I think I have a memo that I'm sorry, it came while I was gone, but Neil was kind enough, who's the executive director of NCWC, to put together for me, but he listed a whole raft of different funding sources that project partners would probably be pursuing. The state funds that are already available for bridge, culverts, would certainly be on the table. There are other federal USDOT grants that aren't mentioned here, RISE grants, I can't remember, it's RISE or it's RISE. There's, potentially other additional state resources that could be brought to bear as well. Other bonding resources that the state could apply because so many state agencies touch this project. So I think the hesitancy has not been to invest here. It's a high profile fish restoration project that's in an urban area. They're hard to come by. Mm-hmm. The problem has been that the investment has been too risky because it was unclear if a funding package could come together or if permits could be secured. And so if the 15 million comes in, you've taken a lot of the risk out of the investment, mm-hmm. in theory.
But getting that funding together, putting that together is a lot of staff time. But that would be, so it sounds like the timeline for that portion of the work would be like later in 2023, end of 2023.
Yeah, year one of the $15 million phase, mm-hmm. Is 23, 24. Mm-hmm. And I think based on what I'm seeing just in terms of administration, kind of more in fiscal year 23, he's kind of going back, he's probably talking federal fiscal years and I'm thinking today, but if you just think calendar, I think you're probably looking at more of like a fall like a fall 23, winter 24 timeframe for when it would, if we're going to have additional staff in place, but to use these resources, or I need to reallocate staff, I mean, or off of other projects, that would be more the timeframe I'm thinking of. But it's, the thing I like, honestly, about the path it's on right now is, I just can't, I really like I like that American Rivers has done these projects and they've administered them before.
Yeah.
And that they've done them with other municipalities. And I mean, Neil has a lot of experience too, but I like American Rivers, like putting it forward and herding the cats is helpful. Because they've been working directly with ODOT right now too. And the person that they are working with at ODOT, I also, just to be frank, have a lot of confidence in. Her name's Tova Peltz. She's the project delivery manager for Region 1 now, but her start was a geohydro. She was a staff person in the environmental unit, and then she became head of the geohydro team in Region 1, and then now is the project delivery manager, and she's the one working on it. So she knows the project. Mm-hmm. So yeah, the stars may be aligning. And I just want to emphasize that because they don't everywhere. So this is not me. I will not be running in next week to say, yeah, and I found another $15 million grant. And we should apply for this because I have a nonprofit with expertise that's carrying the weight. And I have, honestly, once in a generation passed legislation that's funded specific pots that directly apply to our thing. So but hopefully it all works and we can move to the next step in this process.
So let me just say, woo! I had been feeling optimistic, but I was waiting for Kelly to not sound so optimistic. So it's very exciting that she sounds so optimistic.
Yeah.
I'm sorry you're not here to say woohoo in person, Lisa.
No.
Yeah. Me too.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's it. I don't know if anybody else has any questions, but.
Long time coming.
It's a long time coming. I will just disclose that my first draft of the staff report said soul-crushing workload in the. So it's it. Yeah. Just know that I am a little nervous still, but about that. But I think that hopefully that the partnership that we have going is going to help continue to smooth out the bumps. So.
And I think if the grant does come through, that's. We'll have to look at that. And thank you, because I know you have carved out time in your impossible workload to make this happen despite everything. Your commitment has really carried the day. So thank you.
And this is probably not super helpful in this moment, but I will say I was having flashbacks of the first time I ever saw Kelly Brooks in my whole life. And she was sitting before you all talking about how she was taking culvert money back for this project. Yeah. And I was like, that woman is amazing. And then she applied for this job and she's been able to do it the way it needed to get done. You know, I really value that she's always so honest about what we can and can't do in a moment. And it's pretty exciting that we can do this today.
Well, and I will say that for anybody out there watching who doesn't know the history of the dam or how hard we've been working on it, the mayor and another resident named Greg Bartz-Bowman made a documentary about, 12, 13 years ago?
I think it was before I was on the planning commission, so maybe 14, 15 years ago.
Called Undam It, and you can find it on YouTube and elsewhere, Undam It, and it's maybe 20 minutes, and it's very informative background. I recommend it to people who might be curious.
My first memory of Kelly and this project.
Oh, this will be a fun night. Let's keep doing this.
She was sitting at the JPAC table as the representative for ODOT, working for ODOT at the time when I went to, I'm not sure exactly what the verb is, but give a lot of grief to JPAC and attempt to get them to support that project at some point in the future. and I made a joke about we'd been denied funds for this, depending, something to the fact that been denied funds either as a bridge or a culvert, depending on what the funds were for in the first place, by saying it was not that, it was the other thing. And the only person in the room that laughed at that joke was Kelly.
She was pretty funny. Yeah. No, I remember that morning. You came up and took the spot of Tim, or of Mayor Wilsonville, because you were the alternate, just to yell at me. But anyway, this replaces that money. Hopefully. Well, the congressional, just the earmark money alone actually replaces that.
Yeah,
and then 15 million would exceed it. So
this is awesome. This is
good.
Super exciting. Very exciting. And I think you're totally right. I think if we get this 50 million, the rest will come.
I think so.
Big deal. So
We'll just have Kelly crying and rocking in her corner office. That's not the best. So we'll have to work on that part.
Yeah, no, you'll get real people that know how to do this instead of me talking to you about it is what's going to happen. So, all right, thank you very much. That's my update.
thank you. Excellent. Excellent way to end the evening. Thank you. All right. Anything else? If not, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Good job.